Ms. Carmen Walker, our regional director, is returning back to the podium. She'd love to hear herself talk, because she calls me all the time. And the phone be laying down, I don't tell her that though. But she's going to go ahead and guide us in the Q&A as well.
Thank you all for being a wonderful listening audience. At this time, we will entertain any questions that you might have. I will not be answering them. That is not what you're looking for. But certainly, if you have questions at this time, I will recognize you, and Mr. Brooks will be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Who wants to go first? Oh, this is a shy group. That's what you said. I was not told that about the Oklahoma 12. No questions. Well, in church, when you don't have questions, you really pass the plate. So I'm just, you might want to ask a question. Yes? Yes, sir.
Question, you discussed voter IDs. In regards to voter identification issues across the United States, right now, which state, you mentioned Texas, now is Texas the battleground where that's going to happen next, or is it going to be challenged elsewhere? Where is the NAACP looking at taking this on?
That's an excellent question. So there are a number of states that have enacted these voter ID laws in the wake of the Shelby versus Holder decision, which, for those of you who are not following voting rights jurisprudence day to day, this is a Supreme Court decision where the court basically invalidated the foundation, if you will, for Section 5 preclearance. And all that means is the Justice Department for certain states, whenever there was a change in the time and place of voting, it had to be pre-cleared. These were states that have a long history of violating people's civil rights with respect to voting. Now, when the Supreme Court invalidated this, the statutory foundation, if you will, for Section 5 preclearance, what it meant was that states were free to make many changes with respect to voting without those changes being cleared by the Justice Department. And so what you found was states changing the places where people vote, closing down where people voted. So in other words, you had instances where someone might have crossed the street to vote, and only to discover after these statutory changes that they had to take 2 or 3 buses over the course of several hours in order to cast a ballot. Alongside of those kinds of efforts, we saw efforts related to changing the requirements for voter IDs. Now, we have states like Ohio, Texas, North Carolina, those being some of the prominent ones. And so we have litigation in North Carolina. They won, the NAACP won partially on an appeal in terms of early voting. That's up before the Supreme Court. Ohio is a battleground as well. But our main challenge here is twofold. One, in the courts, in terms of grappling with these challenges one by one. But the real fix here, if you will, is fixing the Voting Rights Act, which would allow us to put some semblance of protection back in. And then the other longer-term challenge is frankly creating a system by which there's some uniformity among the states in terms of voter IDs and how we handle voting in this country. Because here's the challenge. There is no evidence of voter fraud, right? So this is an instance where our state legislators have engaged in feverish activity to remedy a problem that does not exist, right? There are no studies, there's no evidence to demonstrate massive voter fraud such that we need to have legislators working day and night and engaging in all kinds of creative strategies to protect us from voter fraud, and in so doing, ensuring that fewer people vote. Now note the irony here. Most of the folks not most, but everyone in the state legislature got there by means of the vote. So how then can they use their time and energy and tax taxpayer dollars to ensure that fewer people vote. We need a fix, and that has to do with the Voting Rights Act and, of course, fighting this in the courts.